I've used Claude Code hundreds of times, honestly, just this week or the past 2 weeks to work on real data science projects at work. And I feel like not everyone is using it completely right. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I use Claude Code as a data scientist who's been in the field for like 7 years. And I'll go through the actual workflow and tips and tricks, complexities that you would only know if you use it like day in and day out. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Priya. I'm a senior data scientist at Stripe. And I guess that's all you need to know. Let's get straight into it. If you remember anything from any Claude Code video ever, remember this. Context is everything. The number one mistake people make with Claude Code is that they just open it and they just start prompting. No context, no references, nothing. It's not like a mega genius. It will only be a mega genius if it knows what to look at specifically. What I do instead is that I make sure every single project directory, like each data science project, has a Claude MD file. This file is like the brain of the project. You can reference relevant docs, code, data schemas, other markdown files that you have in the project directory that you want it to reference. But basically, every time you open up Claude Code in this project repo, it will already have access to all of that knowledge that's in your Claude MD file about the project. So you don't need to re-explain the project over and over again. The reason this is so important is because context window limitations with these kinds of AI tools are very real. If Claude doesn't have context, it will guess. And it will guess very, very confidently, as I'm sure you're all aware of. That is absolutely worse. And that's why people think LLMs are not that great, because they're very sycophantic and very confident. But if you set up your foundations to using the LLM correctly, it will be your peer programmer that basically knows everything. I think every new computing paradigm, like cloud infrastructure, AI usage, the web in general, it all ends up reinventing the same core abstractions of files, folders, and databases. This is what makes your Claude work for you. And there's so many articles about this. Here are 3 that I think are absolutely fantastic. File systems having a moment is the read if you're trying to really optimize Claude Code. A couple of examples where this has helped me. I mean, it's helped me innumerable times. For example, certain experimentation projects where you have like multiple experiments all running at once, people coming into the experiment, leaving the experiment. There's so much to track. There's so much nuanced statistics. I have like probably 20 plus SQL queries used to track multiple things, a Python script, a dashboard with visuals that I need to monitor. And I can't give that context of like 20 different SQL scripts every single time. But if you create everything in your project directory, reference all of the right files in Claude.md, once you open up Claude in that directory, it will have all of this context so you don't have to re-explain yourself. I also use this just like when I'm vibe coding for fun on the weekends. And for one of my tools, this like options volatility tracker tool, you can take a look at my structure. I have an assumptions MD file and a next steps MD file. And those have been game changing because this is really just like a side project that I open up every couple days or maybe every couple weeks. And I will not remember all of the assumptions that the model has made because I didn't write every single line of code. There's like thousands of lines of code. I know there are assumptions baked in there, and I need to know like what the goal of this project even is and what my next steps were. Once all of your context is set up, this is where things get super interesting. Now you can start automating everything. This is the thing that saves me the most time and is so game changing because I built my foundations the right way. Now things that used to take hours per week are now like 15-minute automated like Claude workflows or Claude skills. And it's because I've encoded all of my knowledge as a data scientist into these skills. Claude has a concept of skills, and those are reproducible workflows, and it's essentially just a markdown file. And you could have multiple markdown files that have references or information about things that you go through in the workflow. The hardest part isn't coding. It's getting yourself to like sit down and like mentally compile the list of everything and then give Claude the right instructions to then create that skill. Once your skill's done, that's your automated workflow. My biggest tip is enable diction so you can just talk through the entire process to Claude and then provide your bulleted list of like your step-by-step instructions on how you do something. And I think with the step-by-step instructions plus your stream of consciousness thought, you'll get like honestly 95% of the way there. So now we're done setting up the foundation and automating things that you already know and saving hours. But what happens when you're stuck on something that you don't really know the answer to yet? The third way I use Claude Code, and probably like the best way to use it in an exploratory way, is to think of it as your smartest coworker who only answers questions very specifically. I'm limited by my data science ability. Everyone is. Data science is an amalgamation of statistics, machine learning, which is basically statistics, mathematics, experimentation, data pipelining, data structures, algorithmic modeling, just SQL, so many things, the business knowledge. There's so much you need to know as a data scientist. And honestly, like Claude kind of knows everything. It just responds very specifically based on the questions that you ask it. I personally feel like the key insight to all of this is that Claude Code is almost entirely dependent on the context that you give it. The probability of Claude providing good suggestions, given that you provide the relevant context, is above 90%. And it's not a write my code for me situation. It's more using Claude as your brainstorming partner. Once you already have like a fully fleshed out project, potentially a couple of skills, like you know what's working. If you want to expand it and take it to the next level, you can use Claude to do that, to be your thought partner on how to do that. Because I can definitely say, even with an XGBoost model or something I use like and have used for so many years, I don't know every single parameter. I don't know every single optimization. But if you have a very specific thing you're trying to do and you just don't know how to do it yet, that's when you can use Claude. For example, when I was building out different skills for root cause analyses, there were so many avenues that I personally as a data scientist would have never explored, like the underlying engineering system itself. I don't look at Java code. I'm not like a software developer, but Claude can look into the code, find things that we could optimize, and then will just tell me, hey, you should just do this. It's an easy win. It's good for brainstorming, code debugging, feature additions, ML model output and evaluations, business translation, so many things. So now that you got your context set up, you're automating, you're using Claude to think through problems. The last thing I personally would do that I've done so many times and it's really a game changer is basically the principle of agents should QA other agents. The session that built your code should never QA that code. I think this is what people skip entirely, and that's what makes AI slop. Honestly, if you're not doing the initial code and you're not coming up with the model, that's kind of a problem, but I know that we're walking towards that right now, where AI is like generating the foundations, and if it's generating foundations, it cannot QA itself. The same session absolutely cannot QA itself. You need another agent, another session to QA everything that you've built. This works because if you didn't give Claude enough detail, you gave it too wide of a prompt, or the session just kind of went on too long, it could have strayed in various directions that you're not aware of because maybe you didn't QA thousands of lines of code yourself. I /clear, and then I immediately ask it to go through the entire repository of code in this project directory, look at all of the Claude files, just try to understand everything it can, and then very detailed on everything that's right, what's wrong. And I add all of the assumptions that the code has made into an assumptions MD, and that's how I keep tracking all of the assumptions made, especially when I didn't build this underlying model. For example, very basic things, like sometimes it hard codes a month into a 30-day increment. We know that's not true though, because February is 28 days, some days are 31, and this really actually messes up with your calculations, and I saw this happen the first time I vibe coded. A fresh context window is going to catch things that the original session missed, and this is your feedback loop. This is a way to QA the entire process that you've created that we've just chatted about chronologically. Context windows are very similar to human memory. They're concave. If I ask you to do something complicated today, you might think back to your memory of like, oh, I've seen this before, but you're not going to analyze every single thing, and everything that happened, you're not going to remember something from like 3 years ago exactly. And it's kind of the same. Like if you've been in a conversation and it kept compacting the conversation, and you're on the same session for multiple days, it will start contradicting itself because it's not going to remember what it told you a day ago or like 15,000 tokens ago. Okay, so we're done with the main things that I use Claude Code for as a data scientist. Now I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. Stop watching videos about AI tools. It is good to understand the basic concepts. So if you understand what is Claude Code, what is a context window, how can I use this, what is a skill, you understand general things, you need to start just doing it yourself. Watch like a 5-10 minute YouTube video here or there, but like you need to practice. I've easily spent a whole weekend using Claude Code to build something out that will never see the light of day, but I learned a lot while doing it. And it's just practice makes perfect. Now, if you take one thing from the video, set up your project context properly. I sound like a broken record, but that's the truth. If you take two things from the video, build a skill that automates something. The ROI is going to be insane. If you're going to take 3 things from this video, which I hope you take everything from the video, but if you have limited capacity, use fresh context windows to QA. Don't trust a long session to catch mistakes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you understand how I use Claude Code in my day-to-day and how I really think that this is the new way of working and you have to adapt to it as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you at the next one.